third method where we look at the beta of a comparable firm. Let's assume now that this beta is not given to us. This number 1.2 is not available to us. If this number is not available to us, then at this point of time there would be an issue in terms of calculating exactly how do we reach to the cost of equity, correct? In this case, we will start discussing a new way of calculating data. So I can find out comparable firms and I can take their beta. The problem with this is that I'm assuming beta shows the risk, and risk is defined by the leverage of the firm, debt equity of the firm. So effectively, if beta is high, or whatever the beta of this firm is, it assumes that my firm under question also has the same debt equity ratio. The beta that we calculate is called the levered beta or the equity beta. This is calculated from the stock market. We have this for a comparable firm. Now this beta, which is levered beta, has to first be converted into an asset beta or unlevered beta. You call it asset beta or unlevered beta by using this formula. 1 plus debt by equity of the firm into 1 minus T, because debt you take 1 minus T. You will note that debt by equity will be a number greater than or equal to 0, which means when you calculate beta unlevered, this will always be less than beta levered. What does beta unlevered or beta asset, as it is commonly called in the book, is what does it denote? It denotes the risk of the firm if the firm did not have any debt. So if the comparable firm had 0 debt, what would its risk have been? So we find the unlevered beta of that firm first, and then we do an exercise called relevering of this beta using our debt equity. Correct? When we do an example, it will become clearer. So effectively, we are first taking the risk of a comparable firm. We are scaling it down to account for the fact that, let's say the firm has 0 debt. What would the risk have been then? And then we put our debt equity on this to find the new beta of the firm under question. Fine. Let's try and understand this. So we have a particular firm, comparable firm, whose beta is given to us. That's 1.6. What we also have is that debt equity of this comparable firm is 1.5. So remember the formula. The formula for calculating asset beta will be 1.6 divided by 1 plus 1.5 into 1 minus the tax rate. Correct? Tax rate we'll assume to be 30% here as well. So effectively, if we calculate for this, we will get the unlevered beta of the comparable firm. So this is equal to 1.6 divided by 1 plus the debt by equity, which is then multiplied by 1 minus the tax rate, which is given here. So effectively, this is what the number looks like. Let me just add a few brackets. Unlevered beta is 0.78. This means that this firm would have exhibited a market beta of 0.78 if they had 0 debt. Now we have scaled it down. The assumption that the market is making is that between two comparable firms, if they have no debt, the risk will be perceived to be similar. Fine. Now we will relever it using our debt equity ratio. So we have been given a debt equity ratio here, which is effectively 40% by 60%. So I can calculate this by this, which is 0.66 or 0.67. That's our debt equity ratio in the question. So I can now relever this beta using this debt equity ratio. How do I relever it? Remember the same formula. We will just take the unlevered thing to the other side. So beta unlevered now multiplied by 1 plus debt by equity into 1 minus T is going to give me beta levered of my firm, which I will then use. Correct? So how do I calculate this? this is effectively going to be equal to unlevered beta multiplied by 1 plus the debt equity, which I will just note down as 0.67, and multiply this by 1 minus the tax rate, close brackets, and let me just put in one more bracket here just to avoid any confusion. 1.15 is the beta of our firm given the debt equity of our firm. Because our firm has a debt equity of 0.67 as against the comparable firm's debt equity, which is 1.5, the beta of our firm is lower, in which case you can calculate the cost of equity using the new beta that we have just calculated. 15.7% would be the cost of equity using the new beta that we have just calculated.